What's up everyone, welcome back to another video with the Millennial Finance. In October of 2020, I did a review on Raiz Invest. Basically, my thoughts were that the concept is cool and it's perfect for new investors especially. They only accepted Maybank debit cards at the time, which was slightly limiting to many people. Also, they only had funds from PNB, which is not a great option because in that case, I may as well invest through Amanah Saham instead. Finally, I thought that the fees were too high, especially for smaller accounts. A lot of you loved that video and I know that many of you still invest your money with Raiz Invest. They've actually made some changes since then. The team has been pretty active, which is cool. But if you want to check out the older video that talks about the basics of Raiz, then check out our older video. But today, I'll be doing another review focusing more on the changes that have been made since the last video. Let's get started. Cha-ching! Before we start, if you want to sign up with Raiz, then use our link. We'll leave it down in the description below and we'll both get 5 ringgit once you invest your money. So the first thing that I'll be talking about today is the investment portfolio itself. And it sounds like Raiz has actually listened to us here because they have expanded to more funds beyond PNBs. This is good because this must have been a tough decision considering that Raiz is actually owned by PNB, meaning that they would want as much of the funds channeled towards their own funds instead. So they didn't really add a bunch of new choices like Raiz Australia, but at least it's a step in the right direction. So they've added 3 new funds being the UOB Global Balance Fund, the Aberdeen World Equity Fund, and the UOB ESG High Quality Sukuk Fund. To invest in these funds, you have to create a custom portfolio. You cannot choose their standard, aggressive, moderate, conservative. Those will still be PNB only funds. So you have to create a custom one and you have to decide how much allocation you want into each of these 3 funds. But don't worry, I'll be going through each one of them to help aid your decision. The first one that I'll be talking about today is the UOB ESG High Quality Sukuk Fund. As its name implies, it is a relatively safe investment with 100% of the fund's investments put into Sukuk. As with all investments, since the risk is relatively low, do also expect relatively lower returns. You won't be getting your 5, 6, 7% every single year. Returns so far haven't been great. They're still negative in the last 1 year, but this is too short of a time frame and Sukuk is not expected to give the high returns like I was talking about. In terms of holdings, they essentially hold Sukuk issued by mostly public companies in Malaysia. The sector allocation is pretty diverse. They're not all into just one industry, which means that the risk levels should be relatively low. Even though Sukuk acts sort of like a loan and a bond and it is relatively safe, if all of our investments is in just one company or one sector, if that company somehow goes bankrupt, we'll still be at risk. So having it diversified across many different companies and industries is a good thing. So there's nothing much else to talk about it. Sukuk funds, bond funds are always pretty straightforward. They are low risk, low return, and they're meant to diversify your portfolio and act as a hedge. The next one I'll be talking about is a bit more interesting. It is the Aberdeen Global Equity Fund. Looking at the performance, to be honest, it has been relatively good. Over the last 3 years, they have returned an annualized 17.91%, and over the last 5 years, they've returned closer to 12%. Their top 10 holdings comprise of solid companies. If you look at it, it is not the standard Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, Google. It's actually companies like Taiwan Semiconductor, Procter & Gamble, and Nike. So it is a good mix of companies from different industries, and they're all pretty big and pretty solid. In terms of country and industry breakdown, again, they're actually very diverse and we don't see the standard concentration in US and technology stocks only. In my opinion, this is a very well balanced portfolio and you wouldn't really need to diversify much beyond this. Even in my own DIY portfolio, I probably don't have this much diversification. Since this fund is 100% in equity, it is definitely riskier than the Sukuk fund that I was talking about earlier, so do expect some volatility. So the objective of this portion of your portfolio should be it is higher risk and it should give higher returns, which it has shown over the last 3 and 5 years. And the main purpose, if you want to have this in your Raiz portfolio, is for capital gains and to basically grow your money. And the final fund that Raiz has included last year is the UOB Global Balance Fund. As its name implies, it is a balance in all things, which means it is a mixture between the first 2 funds that I was talking about. It holds just about 50% in equities and 50% in bonds and cash. Its top holdings, unlike the Aberdeen one, are our standard tech giants like Apple, Google, and Microsoft. Compared to the Aberdeen one again, this fund is slightly less diverse with more of the portfolio in tech stocks and less country diversification. However, they do have exposure to countries like Malaysia, UAE and Indonesia. I'm not sure whether this is equities or it's just the bond or Sukuk part, but still it's nice to have exposure to some of these countries that may not fit in our portfolio from other investments. The Sukuk component of this fund is also more global compared to the one earlier where everything was in Malaysia. This gives it a bit more diversification and in return always leads to more safety. Performance-wise, this fund has also been doing pretty well, but it is relatively new so we don't have a lot of data here. Over the last 1 year, they have returned nearly 13%, which is a pass in my books. So as Raiz is Sharia compliant, all 3 funds that I was talking about are all Sharia compliant as well, so there should be no problem for those of you who invest in only Sharia compliant stocks. So that's it about the investments that they have. Next up, I'll be talking about their funding methods. If you want to deposit money directly, then you can use any bank in Malaysia to do so. For the auto-roundup feature though, they're still limited to Maybank debit cards only, which is a bit disappointing. They also haven't added the credit card option, which I would have used so much more. Some of you did mention in our old video that Raiz is not allowed to include credit cards because technically that means that we're investing on borrowed money and this is not allowed by Bank Negara Malaysia, but I did see that Raiz Australia did allow this, so it would be cool if they worked on this. I'm not sure if this is something Raiz can work around, whether Bank Negara Malaysia and the Australian Central Bank have different rules, but not having credit cards is a big no-no for me because I barely use debit cards anymore. For those of you who do use debit cards though, and specifically Maybank ones, then this is perfect for you. I highly recommend this and I would definitely use it. And it's not just changes that Raiz has made, they've also launched a new feature called Raiz Rewards, and to me, this is the most exciting portion. For those of you who use Shopback a lot, you'd probably be familiar with this concept. Basically, whenever you buy something from a website that's listed here, you get some form of cashback. If you did it through Shopback for example, they will give you cash that you can later withdraw. With Raiz Rewards though, the cashback that you would get from these companies would then go straight into your investment portfolio. Now this is smart and I really like it. Let's say 11/11 comes around, despite knowing that you shouldn't waste your money on silly things, you can't hold yourself back and you really want to buy that thing that you've been eyeing for the longest time. At the very least, a portion of your purchase will go back to your investments so that you can feel a bit better about yourself. After finding out about this feature, to be honest, I just found out about it when preparing this video, but because of this, I would definitely be using this over Shopback because hey, I would always love my money into investments rather than cold hard cash. I don't think that they have as many brands as Shopback right now. I didn't really do any comparisons, but the main ones like Shopee, Lazada, Zalora and AirAsia are all listed on Raiz Rewards. This is a great bit of innovation and I will definitely be using this new feature. So, since our last review, Raiz has made quite a fair bit amount of changes and it is definitely trending in the right direction. However, my investing style means that I won't be depositing a chunk of cash into Raiz Invest. I'd love to use the roundup feature. Again, I think that the concept is really cool and it's a one-of-a-kind thing, but unfortunately because they don't accept credit cards yet, I won't be using it because I just don't use debit cards anymore. They've also added new funds like I was talking about earlier. Previously, the ones were only from PNB and in my opinion, if you were going to do that, then I may as well not invest any money with Raiz. Having gone through the funds as well, they're all pretty top tier. I won't say how you should allocate it, but I've told you how they would work. Finally, Raiz Rewards is probably the most compelling feature update to me, and I will definitely start to use it and I'll let you guys know how it goes on our Instagram. If you want to sign up with Raiz, then use our link down in the description below. It supports the channel, we'll get 5 ringgit and you'll get 5 ringgit as well. Thanks for watching this video to the end guys, give us a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. See you guys in the next one. Peace out.